Welcome to the Audiobook Lovin Podcast, discussing all things audiobooks with the authors that write the stories and the narrators that perform them. Brought to you by Viviana, Enchantress of Books.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Season 3, Episode 20 of the Audiobook Lovin Podcast. Today, I am chatting with author Jenn D. Young. Welcome to the Audiobook Lovin Podcast, Jenn. How are you doing today?
I am good. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm excited to chat with you and get to know you a little better. So why don't we start by having you tell us a little bit about yourself, how long you've been writing, and how you got started.
So my name is Jenn. I have been writing probably most of my life, but professionally, quote unquote, it's been about 3 years. I have been published for right about 2.5 years. And I have actually book 16 comes out very soon. I was born and raised just south of Seattle, about 30 minutes south. That's where I lived my whole life until about 5 years ago. And somehow I wound up in the deserts of Arizona. I hate it. I don't like it here. I have 2 dogs. They are my entire world, Hermes and Loki.
Love the names.
Yes. So it's kind of a knock to mythology, which I love, and Marvel, which I also love. So I write mostly paranormal romance. I do have a couple random contemporary stories in there. And my favorite thing to write is reverse harem. So one girl, lots of guys, all the loving. Happy times.
Happy times indeed.
Yes.
There's a group on Facebook that sole focus is reverse harems, and anytime I need a little bit of a giggle, I go in there because they so much love the genre, and they'll pop in and like, I need my fix, and I'm like, okay. Let's see what people are going to be recommending. And then they're like, okay, well, what are you in the, and then the questionnaire comes in. What are you in the mood for? Is this, fae or shifters? And then all that. And they're like, okay, well, I need this, and this. And I'm boom. And there they are with the recommendations. It's like fantastic.
Yes. Reverse harem readers are voracious. They read hundreds of books a year. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's a whole fantasy of all the attention on me. And then I have spoken to some of the readers and I'm like, but in real life, would you be dealing with that many men? And then one of them busted out one time, well, in real life, they don't look like that. So no. I was like, damn, girl. I was like, okay, about that. But it's definitely a genre that a few years ago wasn't really, I mean, I know it existed, but it wasn't as popular as it has been within the last 2. And it just continues to grow in the different types of dynamics between, usually it's the reverse harem tends to work significantly better, I think, in paranormal romance, because you can totally kind of get rid of that disbelief that people will get jealous and how is this going to work and stuff like that. Whereas in some contemporaries, you're going, good luck with that, buddy. And so, but it's been very, very popular. How did you come into deciding that that is exactly what you were going to be, writing some of the stuff in?
So I've been reading it for years to back to some of the ones that came out like 4 or 5 years ago. And I was terrified of it at first. So like my first 6 books, 7 books were all male, female. And my best friend writes exclusively reverse harem. And she's like, you got to do it. You got to do it. You got to do it. So I not broke down. It didn't really take much to break me down.
Twist my arm, right?
Yeah. And I went for it. And now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Oh.
Yeah. So it was, you have to wrap your brain around, okay, there's got to be a lot of character development because there's, 4, 5, 6 different characters in one book. And I write in first person multi POV. So I like, making sure each character's voice is heard. So it's really fun to delve into some of the guys and how you can have such different personalities, but yet together they like work so well together.
Yeah, the dynamics that I've seen in a lot of these that I've read have been very interesting. I've always kind of find it fascinating when it comes down to the writing of their specific scenes and just keeping track of who's doing the talking, which body part is where, and like how. Wait, based on the position you just said she was in, yeah.
It gets challenging. I know some authors actually draw like stick figure diagrams, and I'm just like, these are hilarious.
Yeah. So you don't do that then, huh?
No, I have a really good imagination. So I have had one time where an editor was like, she can't contort in that way. I'm like, oh yeah, you're right. So let's fix that.
Good catch. Yeah. And so with it being mostly in paranormal romance, that kind of changes a little bit as far as the type of, I want to say, not the characters themselves, because I mean, you can still be a shifter and be a billionaire, depending on what world you're living in, kind of a thing. But when it comes down to those types of character developments, do you prefer to write a specific type of character as far as like within the PNR world? You know, some people love shifters, some people love, vampires, some people love, there's so many of them.
So one of the things I like to say, like when I'm talking to a new person at a signing or something, is you name some sort of paranormal creature and I have it probably somewhere in a book. I've done angels, demons, vampires, shifters, and then breaking down the shifters, I have snow leopards, tigers, wolves, bears. You know, it's like lions and tigers and bears.
Yep.
Mermaids. I got mermaids, I got warlocks. It's just kind of all over the place.
Yeah. That's great, because I know there's some people love the one versus the other, and some people are like, I'm not into that unless they sparkle, and I'm like, okay, well, that's good for you. And things like that. When it comes down to the tropes, how do you go about figuring that out for those stories? Because there's just usually, like, again, in male, just one character to one, you have the males to friends, friendships to lovers, or enemies to lovers. When there's so many other characters all involved, how do you go about, do you overall pick the one, everybody's going to be enemies to lovers, or this set is going to be this and this other person's going to be with the other one?
That is definitely one thing that can be difficult to balance, because you don't want too many tropes to where it gets like confusing, or just, you're throwing tropes in there for the sake of tropes. I'm very character driven. And the other thing is I am not a plotter. So I will have like kind of a basic idea of what I want the story to progress along. So it's kind of like a single line on a timeline. Well, then as I'm writing, things happen. So the person that was originally this person is now this person. So I've had like an enemy turn into one of the harem, and that was totally not where I was thinking that was going to go. It just kind of, it happens as the characters talk to me and decide what they want to do. I may have something like, oh, okay, I want this one to have some sort of like damaged male. And okay, here I build him from this. I always like having one of those kind of damaged, they don't know how to love or be loved type people. Those are always my favorite. So there's always at least one of those in most of my books.
I think we always know someone like that in our lives in one aspect or another. So it's definitely sometimes one of these. I am usually driven by more of the genre than I am with the tropes. So I appreciate you not throwing a bunch of them in there. Because I've seen that too, and I'm going, wait. I'm already trying to keep track of who's who and why they're together and what's stuff, especially with reverse harems. I don't need to have 50,000 tropes thrown in there, especially sometimes when it seems more like a shock value or because it's popular. Yeah, so definitely appreciate that. When it comes to your ideas, how do you go about, like, where do they come from? Your, today I'm going to write about this, and then kind of goes from there.
Since I was a kid, I always have had this insane imagination where I'll just start like with a thread. It's kind of like, or a spark or a light bulb goes off. And then I just kind of branch off of it. And then I keep telling the story to myself in my head. Or when I was a kid, I would act them out with my Barbies or, things like that. I'm very emotionally driven when it comes to writing. Like I can't force myself to write something if I'm not like feeling it. It's why I've jumped around series so much, but I that's just who I am. I write the ones that are talking to me, and when they start talking, they don't shut up, and we just have to get their stories going. But that's kind of just how it goes. Like, and as I'm writing, things develop themselves. Characters can totally turn on their heads, which is kind of some of the fun stuff about the way that I write. Although it can be detrimental when you're building like a long, complicated world.
Yeah, I know some authors are planners and plotters, and they write every little thing down, and others, because they're pantsers, they just don't. And then of course that one time that one character out of nowhere decides to be up in your ear. I always love it when authors say that, that the characters speak to me, and I'm like, okay, because I understand that at concepts. I'm not an author, but I understand where that idea just comes to you, and they're like, hello, remember that thing? Yeah, I'm still here. Yeah. Have you ever had a character completely change your directive of where you were going? This is what you were planning on doing, but he's just so freaking loud, or they're so freaking loud.
Yeah. So my first reverse harem series book, there was one guy, and he was going to be the villain. He was going to be the bad guy, absolute evil asshole, everything like that. And then I think I got about halfway through writing the first book, and I'm just like, no, this is not going to happen. We're going to take this further. So I don't want to like spoil anything, but he is not what he appears to be. So it's kind of, and I was like, okay, you just totally effed up. Now I have to come up with a different bad guy. Like, how am I going to do this? But I have to do it because you're not going to shut up.
As they sit in the corner and smirk at you, right? Damn characters, when they get loud, they get annoying. But hey, we love it as the readers when we get those stories and we're going, oh, okay, I see that. And I'm sure a lot of times you guys are like, I'm so glad you guys loved it because he was being such an asshole.
Right.
Yeah. I know that in social media, we've when the authors are, chatting and they're telling us a little bit about the book here and there, sometimes we're like, oh yeah. And in chapter 3, there's supposed to be a sex scene, but I'm so not into it. So I'm just going to write insert sex scene here. Is there a type of scene that you love to write, and also on the opposite that are very difficult for you to write?
So this is kind of funny. So lately I've been doing a lot of co-writes with my best friend, and we kind of have different strengths when it comes to writing, and mine is sex scenes. So what she does a lot of the times is write, all the major plot points and things, and then I'll go in and add details and then add the sex scenes. So that's my thing. Those are real, and I like writing them. They're fun. I do have to kind of get my head in the game sometimes, so to speak. I hate fight scenes. I just am like, okay, what do I describe here, and how is this going here? And so those ones are probably not my favorite.
Yeah, I can see that. And a lot of times, especially in fantasy and in PNR, where things are a bit more magical, things that would normally make us knock unconscious and end of scene because we're not getting back up, all of a sudden they're standing up and they're ready for the next round, and you're going, damn it. But yeah, so you're doing some co-writes. When can we expect some of those to come out?
So we have 1, 2, 3 out already. 3.
Okay.
I think. And then the fourth of that comes out on the 29th.
Nice.
Yeah. So
yeah.
it's been really fun because we actually met through the book world. And then it was like, we found out we actually live like 15 minutes away from each other.
Oh, wow.
And so it was like, oh, okay, now we're best friends. And then it was like, oh, do you want to write something together? Or I think she was talking about something she was going to write. And I was like, I can help you. We can go write it. And then it kind of was just born from there.
That's awesome that you went ahead and went that. I know sometimes there's things that I'm like, I think it, but I'm not going to say it out loud because again, imposter syndrome. But I love that you did it, that you really said it out loud and it worked out. That's fantastic.
Yeah, I don't think I could co-write with anybody else because I'm a little, with the way that I write and how things develop. I think she's the only one that could put up with me.
I'll ask her that when I have her on one of the episodes one of these days. Yeah, no, I think it's there's been significantly more of the co-writing style within the author friends and stuff like that, and hell, even some author narrators that have written books together. And sometimes it works where you have no idea who is writing what chapter, and other times not so much when you're going, I know who wrote this, and the other ones, and some things are not seamless as they should be. At the end of the day, even though there's two people writing it, I don't want to know if this is a you or a there, kind of a thing. It should be completely seamless. But it also takes a lot, the criticism that how do you suggest some things if they need to be changed? And, there's always a little bit of ego, even amongst best friends. So how do you handle some of those? Yeah.
You have to have a lot of trust in the other person. And with us, it's kind of funny because we could finish each other's sentences.
Ooh.
So this latest one that we were writing, there were times where like I was watching her in Google Docs as she was writing, and we were chatting in Messenger, and she's like, oh, well, what should happen here? And I'm like, oh, this, and this. And then I start just randomly typing where she left off.
Nice.
And I was like, oh crap, do you want me to stop? She's like, no, she sends me the little, eating popcorn gift, like, just keep going. I'm enjoying this. Yeah. So it's pretty unique with us.
That's good. I think that when you can find that kind of relationship in anything, right? Whether it's in real life or work or even, a best friend or a coworker, it's fantastic. But even when it's bringing something else to life that brings joy to other people, it's even better, I think, sometimes. So that sounds like fun. So you guys, when you're writing like that, is it you take one POV or one chapter and or do they just, and then the other way around? Or is it just, hey, your turn in the middle of the same, a different chapter here and there?
It kind of just depends. Sometimes we'll do chapters or we usually both kind of gravitate towards one type of character and it's different. So I'll usually grab that character because I'm like, oh no, we need to talk more about him. And she's like, no, we need to talk more about him. And I'm like, okay, we can do both. I'm like, you write that part, I'll write this part. I do the sex scenes and we just kind of go from there.
Of all the characters that you've written, is there one, and if so, which one is it that you connect with the most and why?
So I love this question because it didn't happen until last year. So like my first trilogy, I had that idea when I was in high school. So, 15 some odd years ago. And that character was always kind of me. And I thought, okay, she's going to be the character that's most like me forever and a day. Then I started writing Seeking Snowfalls, which is the first book in my Snow Leopard series. And I just started writing. And the more I started writing, the more the main character became me. Like her reactions to things, her experiences, the way she processed. It was kind of creepy. And it was about like halfway through the book, I'm like, okay, I just have to accept that I am putting my soul into this book because this character is me. It was terrifying when the book came out, because I'm like, oh my God, what if they don't like her? If they, then they're not gonna like me. But it actually is my best selling book by far. And it was kind of what helped like catapult my career a little bit. So it ended up very good.
Hey, it's hard. I mean, I know and you guys as authors make fun of this all the time about you piss me off, I'm going to write you in a book and kill you off. But, or you get the question like, so that sexy neighbor, is he really your neighbor? And so I can only imagine what it's like to have some of that, so much of you in a character that it's, this, now other people know this because you said it here. It's scary to put yourself out there that way. So thank you for sharing that part of you with us.
Yeah, it was terrifying. It still kind of is a little terrifying. Each book, I know some authors will say, oh, well, it kind of gets easier. And then you have the ones that are like, no, each release is still like fingernail biting, freaking out, breathing into a paper bag type situation.
Oh, goodness. Yeah. And then you decide to do it all over again by same book, but now different format, audio. What made you decide to have your titles in audio?
I am a audio fanatic, and I have been probably for about 3 or 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
And like, since I started writing that, I don't listen to as much audio or, if I'm doing other things, but I definitely have a huge oral fixation. So I was like, I knew I wanted to have audiobooks even before the books actually came out. If that makes sense.
No, yep, does.
So I did that. And then I actually talked my best friend into doing it with her best-selling book. And I was like, we got to do it. And next thing I know, she's like, okay, I talked to him. And I'm like, yes.
The enabler. I love it.
Yes, the audio enabler.
Yeah. So does that mean that knowing that you wanted to have these in audio and knowing that going forward your books, this is kind of like what you want to continue to do you write with audio in mind?
Yes.
Okay.
I very much do. I can hear the voices in my head, like as like they're talking. My last few books, Bridget and Jake Bordeaux are my narrators. And so I kind of start thinking about how I want to tell them to voice this character or this character or this character. And so as I'm like typing, I can actually hear it in my head. And it makes it really, really fun sometimes. And then when I get to listen to the files, then I'm like falling over onto the floor.
Now, do you do that mad author moment where you're going to stick in a word or a phrase that you're going to like try to get them to say just for the shits and giggles of it all when you know who the narrators are going to be?
No, actually, sometimes I do. It was funny because my first trilogy, when I was writing the last book, the first book had already been recorded and we were planning on the second book. So the third book, I think I actually counted it and I put like 50 more F words into it. And I'm like, I know it because Tim Page is going to say all these F words. That's probably why I did that.
Tim.
But it's subconscious. It's subconscious. Okay. I didn't even realize I was doing it. Or maybe I just don't want to admit that I was doing it.
Oh, hey, we all have. I've spoken to many an author, as you know, and some of them literally are like, hold my beer, and they try to one up, like the narrator, and it's like, ooh, I got you. Or other ones would be like, you fucking asshole. I love you, but asshole. Yeah. How involved are you when it comes down to the overall process of getting your titles into audio? Are you totally involved in casting? Do you only provide suggestions? How does that process look for you?
So with all of mine, I've asked them specifically, the specific person. So with the my first trilogy, my first audiobook, Um, I had already known I wanted Sarah Puckett, and I was like, please, please, please. And so we did auditions for the male, but I kind of already knew who I had in my head, but I wanted to hear it out loud just to make sure. And so I did that. And then that was the Shadows Ascending trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I had Airless made into audio, I was like, okay, I already know I want Gregory Salinas and Les Lamb. So that happened. And then the other ones is Bridget and Jake. And I love working with them. With them, it's really awesome because they'll send little snippets of each character to make sure that, you know, we like the voice. And it makes it a little bit more involved. And then it's funny because I'm actually listening to the files for our latest audiobook right now before I submit them. And Bridget and I are kind of messaging back and forth. And I was like, I'm dying. This is so good. She's like, just wait until you get to this part. And then I'm messaging my co-writer and I'm like, I think I'm on the floor today listening to this.
I love it when you guys get excited about the books that you've already written. So you know what's going to happen. But at the same time, you guys get so excited about it that it's just so, you know, infectious. And I know it's going to be really good based on the level of excitement. And I know that a lot of authors are like, oh, this is the best, or, oh my God, I love it. But there's something in the energy that I'm like, oh, they're really, really happy about this. And I'm like, okay. Insert
so I
list.
I am my own worst critic.
Mm-hmm.
I am like, this sucks. This is trash. Nobody's going to like it. I want to, you know, yeet it across the room. Then I actually start listening to the audio files. And then I'm like, oh my God. And I'm like, I wrote this. I'm like, I was messaging Aspen. I'm like, I wrote this. I'm like, I wrote this scene, right? She's like, yes, you did. And I'm like, oh, there's something wrong in my head.
Oh, no. Well, you're not alone, girl, because apparently we all love a lot of this stuff. So you're not alone. Yeah, no, you've had I was going through the list of your books and I'm going, okay, these are really good narrators and things like that. Do you have like a wish list of narrators as you're writing these books and the story that you kind of go, oh, okay, this person would be really good. This is my first option. This would be option number 2. You know, 'cause of course, only scheduling would impede anybody from doing a book,
right?
And things like that. Do you have that? Like, do you have a wish list like that you for your narrator? Since you are also a fan.
I mean, there's always the ones, you know, that you're like Aaron Shadlock and Stella Hunter would probably be like my unicorns.
Really? Okay.
Other than those that I've already had, because it was with like Sarah and Tim, that was unicorn, and then I got Gregory and Lessa, and that was unicorn, and then Bridget and Jake. There's so many people that I want to work with, and I want
it's a trick question of sorts, so don't.
I know there's just too many. I'm just like, I love everybody.
Yeah,
you know,
there's so many great voices out there, right? And there's also so many up and coming that I'm like, yeah,
like where did you come from?
Where have you been all my life?
The first time I listened to Blake Lockhart, I'm like, where have you been? And I want more books right now.
Yeah,
I'm like now.
Rob Pickerman was one of those for me. Pickerman. I had probably claimed his last name. But he is so good. And it's like, there's such a quality to some of these voices, you know, and a lot of times fans are busting out with, oh, he has a dark, you know, a deep growly voice, but there's also something else in some of the male narrators and some of the female narrators where it's a little more, it's lighter, or like the girl next door, or it's like, oh, I know someone that sounds like that, or some of the other ones that have this husky, sultry thing to them, you know, and it's like, wow, where have you been? Like literally, man, like where are you now so I can go hang out?
Can you just talk to me, read the phone book?
Oh goodness. Yeah. Like Amberly Connors was one of those for the girls for me this year. I was like, wow. And she's able to switch into accents and not like fluent, like swiftly and like not even thinking about it. I was like, oh, I'm in love.
I will fully admit to writing characters with accents just so I can have the accents in my audios.
Yeah. Well, the listeners,
I am
of
an
course, love it.
accent freak.
Yeah. What's your favorite accent?
Russian is a huge one.
Mm-hmm.
A great British. I'm just like, okay, you have those, the Shane Easts of the world, it's kind of cheating because that's really his voice.
But there's so many other ones that people don't stop to think about when it comes down to it. I'm like, who is this? Lucas Webley? Yeah. Because his brother, I always get him and his brother. He has a twin brother. The names. Because I have a twin. And so it's always, I'm used to people going the whole Francis Viviana. And so even I do it to some people sometimes. I'm like, oops, so sorry. But yeah, it's, there's so many out there that you're going, how do I choose? Lucas Webley. He's another one that, talk about a British period. And then the accents, but also be able to do Scottish and Irish and also other ones. You're going, girl.
Who was I? Who was I? Troy Duran has a great Irish. Oh my God, why am I blanking? And Jason Clark. I'm like, I should know this. I'm like, his Irish is great. I'm listening to that right now.
Yeah. Patrick Zeller is another one that I was like, wow, you're Irish. Damn, boy.
Yeah. I listened to Michelle Mills has the Monsters Love Curvy Girls.
Yeah.
And he does all of them. And I'm like, I love these. I'm like, I love monsters.
Yeah, I was listening to a book that he did. It was a multicast and duet narration, and it's by TJ London, and it's a historical, fiction with romantic elements in there, but he's classified as a romance. And damn, when he's done a couple of good, like one or two funny villains in there, but he did a set of drunk guys at this one thing, and for a second there I had to text the author and go, is this, it sounds like Patrick, but he goes, no, that's Patrick. I'm like, oh damn, TJ. And I couldn't guess. Jason was in that book too, and there was times too where I'm going, I think that's Jason, but their range is so big that those are the kind of books though that I'm like, when I can tell immediately that it's just the one, that's great, I love that. But when I have to struggle to realize, I'm going, oh, I like it. Because they've stretched that there's something I haven't heard before, because I'm all for the alpha male and the gravelly voice and stuff like that. But when I have to really like, that was such a good character. Was that Jason? And they're like, yep. I'm like, oh my God. And I know that happens more in multicast because there's a lot of them at the same time. You can't really do that so much in, singer narration or dual narration, but still, I love it when that happens. Yeah. Sorry, I went fangirl.
So, like what my love Kim Lorraine and Meg Ann have done with their Make Game series, and having the little guest appearances by some of the people as random off characters. I'm like, ooh, I like this.
Yeah, when those surprises happen, I love it when authors do that. It's like they like to please the listeners, and at the same time going, thank you so much for that. Yeah, when that happens. I know Lauren Blakely has done some of that. A couple other ones that of course I blank out when I'm put in the spots. Sorry guys, love you. Yeah, there's a lot of things that have been done, but others, because there's so many books out there, we just don't know about them all. And so when I love talking to you guys and also the fans, and so when we're talking and that comes up, we're like, oh, what about this? I'm like, oh yes, and then what about that? Oh yeah. And so this is also why our to be read list and to be listen lists are immensely long.
Yeah. It's why it's fun to be a fan as well as an author. My dream would be to have get a full cast duet for one of my reverse harems one of these days.
Yeah, so you've put it out there, it will happen.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, no, those are always fun. I know people are starting to get more into those multicast duet styles, but I love it when it's done right. It's so good. But at the same time, you can have a single narrator. There's one, Nicole Poole, who many times people think it's a multicast and it's just her. And her range between the girls and the male characters is so good. I'm like, I know I'm straight, but damn, girl, when you talk. I have to remind myself that, you know, A, it's a fictional character, and B, you know, it's Nicole. So if you haven't checked her out, you should. She's really good. Super nice too. Again, huge range. Yeah. So you're going to be at an event sometime in September called The Lore, right?
Yes. I'm like low key freaking out.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, there's going to be so many amazing people there.
Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh. So is this your first convention as an attendee and B, also as an author, or more so as an author?
I have done a few signings, but this will be like, okay, the first one where narrators are there, and where I'll be very, very, very much trying to keep my cool, because I'll get to meet some of my favorite narrators and also some of my absolute favorite authors that I've been reading for years and haven't actually met yet. So it's going to be a very interesting weekend.
Yeah, no, it's interesting how we always get really nervous beforehand, and then, you know, you bump into one and they're like, oh, I'm so sorry, and then the conversation starts flowing and it's like whoosh, the nerves go away and you're raving, you know, you're talking to each other, it clicks on who each other are, because sometimes that's happens. If you don't see the name tag, you literally think this is the random person, and then all of a sudden, oh my God, you're the narrator, or oh my God, you're the author. And it's funny when that happens, but at the same time, you're going, oh my God, I just made a fool of myself. But no.
Yeah, you don't, or you don't see their name tag at first, and then you look down and you're like, oh my God, I've just been talking to, you know, so-and-so forever.
Oh yeah. No, I mean, I will say that as a community as a whole, I'm sure you know, it's really good overall, and everybody's so sweet. Everybody's so excited about this upcoming event because it's so specifically and exclusively just for audiobooks. It's the first one. I think other events have realized there's a draw and an audience of interest there, and so they've been adding narrators to the list, or the production companies have been bringing them. But it's just different when you're like, this is for us, for you, you know. So those are always fun. So you have your list of narrators and authors, and things are going to get signed. Are you bringing some swag for your fans and stuff like that?
Yes, I just ordered some new fun stuff. I love swag. So I'm just like, okay, what am I bringing? You know, what all, and then I'm like, okay, what books do I bring for the narrators to sign, of like my own like signed book collection, not my books, but other authors' books. And I'm like, okay, I got to figure out, like, prioritize, because there's only so much suitcase space.
But you are going to get your own book signed. Like, I'm sure you have like, these are my books of mine that I've written, and not Tim sign it, you know, kind of thing. Yes. Okay, good, yes. good.
So I have a shelf. I actually got to meet Bridget and Jake in October in Vegas. So I have at that point the ones they had done signed, but I'm gonna take like my personal collection and have them I actually will have 5 out of my 6 narrators there.
Good. Yeah. No, the list of narrators is fantastic, and it keeps growing. Both authors and narrators. So I'm like, ooh, it's not like a guessing game. Like, who would today? Yeah, it's always fun. It's a great group of both authors and narrators, and I'm really, really hoping that everybody has such a great time and that they discover new ones. Because that's the other thing too. It's like a lot of times there have been situations where I may not have ever picked up a book, but the moment that I start talking to the author, I just kind of get hooked and I fall in love with them. And so I'm like, so what's your book again? Okay, I can have a copy, and I buy one.
Or like mine will be like, I'm walking by and I see a super pretty cover and I'm like, talk about this.
Yeah,
I'm like,
that happened too.
ooh.
Yeah. I was just talking to an author and she has such pretty covers that completely makes you think that they're contemporary, but hers are contemporary sweet romance omega verse. And I'm going, okay, tell me more.
Yes. That's my book that releases on the 29th, is a sweet verse, omega verse, contemporary.
Nice. Yeah,
Yes.
I was talking to her and I'm like, I try to be as hip with everything that's going on, but again, there's just so many different genres and books and everything like that. I knew that there was different types of omega verse, but usually the one that everybody talks about is the darker side of the omega verse universe when it comes down to dubious consent, really dark issues, and lots of triggers. And then when she was telling me about all this other stuff, and I'm like, you need to tell people about this, because there's, and apparently there's a lot of people that already know it, but I'm like, no, you need to tell the masses. So that's why I had her explain to everybody about like, okay, what is this in specifics? Because that's the other thing too, is it's one of those genres that's a little tricky to explain.
Yeah, it really is, especially when they're not shifters.
Yeah.
But they have kind of some tendencies.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's still fun. So yours,
it is huge in the reverse harem world right now. It's like there are authors that are getting close to the top 100. Yeah.
So you said you have a book that's upcoming that's in this sweeter side of Omegaverse. Can you tell us anything about it yet or not yet?
Yes. So it's called Perfectly Not, with the not being KONT.
I love that.
For knots. Yeah, I know. I'm like, that's such a almost corny thing, but it's not really corny. It's cute. I love it. It's probably one of my favorite books I've written. I co-wrote it with my bestie Aspen Black. And our main character has been abused in her past and harbors, some PTSD things, along with some fight or flight instincts. And she goes to work in for a huge corporation, and the 4 CEOs, owners of the company, actually find her and instantly know that she's their mate. There's 3 alphas and a beta, and I love these guys so much. They are sweet, and there's one that's a little growly. He's had some, he's my tragic past, broken, come here, I want to just wrap you in hugs and let no one ever touch you again, type characters. But it's wonderful. I love the progression of the story, how they all learn to heal together, fight their pasts, overcome everything, and have their happily ever after.
Oh, yeah. I think that's one of the things that when I first learned, because I love PNR. And, and I can do anything from angels to fae to, shifters and vampires. But I tend to kind of gravitate a little bit more to the shifter. And I think it's because of the whole, like, you make your own family versus that as just the blood and the protectiveness of protecting your family and who those individuals are, regardless, and still being able to say, you're an asshole, but I love you, but you're our asshole. And if you get too far into being an asshole, we're going to fix that. And so when I can get to stories that are like that and have those character developments, I'm like, oh, that's my jam right there. So I'll be adding that to my list. And that title is just so cute. And I love it when it works out like that. Plus also I can also see about the whole concept of like fonts, and that's just my marketing brain jumping in there, like, oh, the stuff that you can do with those letters. I'm like, oh my God, I'm such a geek. Sorry. It's fun. I love, like I said, pretty covers. Covers are important. Sometimes people don't realize that. I'm all for, like, don't judge a book by its cover, but work a little harder on some of these girls, like some of the stuff, covers mean a lot. That's how you get your product out there. And yeah, no, you have to. So your covers are nice, by the way. I love your covers.
Thank you.
Yes, I know that there's a little bit of everything in there, and there's, I love the color schemes and stuff like that too. That you've done. Yeah, those were great. And the fonts. Right?
I'm like, that is just, you think it's simple. But it's like the
No.
little things, like in my
Yeah.
Snowfall series, the O is a snowflake.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm like, I love that. I'm like,
Yeah.
it's so cool.
Yeah. And the shadow ones, you have also a little symbol. It's almost like a little star of sorts, right? And the O. What symbol is that? What do you call that? I call that a spark.
It was the Eye of Horus, I think,
Okay.
was in
Yeah.
something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's all those little things, those details. But when you find that pretty font, I'm like, grab it, keep it.
Uh-huh.
You know, and it doesn't have to be overly done. It could just be one word, you know, and I think that that's where you've excelled in your covers and stuff like that, where I'm seeing there's, you know, swirls into it. It's, you know, curvy and stuff like that, but also it's not too hard where I can't read and understand it when it's in a phone and a, you know, little avatar box.
I totally can't take credit. I have some amazing designers that I work with that I'm just like, you're mine. Never go away. I'm just going to keep using you forever, never, 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 never.
Well, but also it takes a lot to see that, you know, and understand that too. It's a, you know, when it's a job that I love, you know, and I know it takes a lot of work, and you can literally go down the rabbit hole of fonts, and especially when you're like, I don't know, have you ever done a search for fonts?
I am not artistically inclined, so every time I try, I have like analysis paralysis where I'm like, oh, this, and then oh, this, and I'm like, no, I need to run away because I'll spend 3 hours trying to do this.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I will tell you that the worst feeling is when you think that you found the font and every letter works except for that one, and you're going, damn it. Oh, that's no. So that's when you kind of get creative. But this is why you have your graphic designers that can do this stuff, you know, so that's good. But enough about the fonts. Again, I'm a geek. I'm sorry. When you're not working and writing all these awesome books and stories and developing these fantastic characters that we fall in love with and want more of, what do you do for fun?
Audiobooks. I'm like, fun. What is fun? Movies. I'm a huge Marvel nerd. I love all things Marvel. Mandalorian, Baby Yoda.
Oh yeah, that was great.
Most of the time I just spend my evenings laying in bed and playing silly games on my phone and watching, you know, things like Bob's Burgers or putting a Marvel movie marathon on. I'm pretty low key, so I'm like, I just stay at home. And living just outside of Phoenix, there's about 4 months out of the year where you can't really walk outside without it, you know, being like a furnace. So I stay inside.
I hear you. As a Floridian, I understand. Yeah, no, I the Marvel stuff has been coming out. It's been really good. I'm glad that they've done those little series offhand in between movies. And I know that I'm really jamming on the most recent ones. Miss Marvel. Miss Marvel, is it? Yes. I love the culture of how they're doing everything there. And then the one that was before that one, Moon Knight. Was it Moon Knight? Yeah, those are great. That was another one that I was like, oh, nice font. See, geek, told you. But yeah, I mean, it's funny too. A lot of the authors that I talk to and the narrators are like, wait, what's fun? And I'm like, the things that you do outside of work.
I know, right? Well, let's just face most of us authors have a lowly day job too.
Yeah.
So between the day job and writing, and then I also proof audiobooks on the side too. So I'm like, I don't have time. What is fun?
But hey, it doesn't have to be these grand gestures of things. Hanging out with the doggies and being able to watch, you know, our bench, you know, bench see something. It's been good, you know. So it's always a good thing. So yeah.
Yep.
So you, as someone that use and are constantly around words, what is your favorite word? Separate of that, of what's your favorite curse word? Because that's the second part of that question.
Discombobulated has always been one of my favorite words.
It's a good one.
It's just fun to say. It's I've thrown it in a book a time or two, but I just love saying it.
That's good. And so what about your favorite curse word?
Fuck.
Yeah,
I'm
it's a
like,
good one.
who doesn't like that? There's so many different, ways it could be used and said. And it's just a very, very, very diverse word.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, as someone that can use it as a noun, adjective, pronoun, and everything in between, I understand.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's very versatile. I love that. But I also love the word discombobulated. It's
Yes.
can be said and mean a lot, and just in the word itself can be so good.
Yeah.
So one of the things I love to do with our guests, because it's a little bit of getting to know you and also like, ooh, you sneaky little tricky person, you, is playing the game of two truths and a lie, where you're going to tell us 3 things about yourself, of which one is a lie, and we have to figure out which one it is. And I do say we because the listeners, I really hope y'all are playing along, really. Otherwise,
it's fun to play. Yeah.
I think so. I think having that moment of like, okay, am I right? Am I? Oh, yes, I was. Or, oh, no, I wasn't. Like, I completely botched it the last episode that I recorded. I was like, oh, damn, I sucky poo today. But the previous one, I knocked it out of the park. But still, it's okay. So if you're ready,
okay.
What are your 3 things about you?
Okay. Number 1, I can only write while listening to music. 2, I have a custom Funko Pop of myself. And 3, I have the release date of my first book as a tattoo.
Oh, wow. Wow. Okay. See, these are all like very plausible, and because I know that you can get custom Funko Pops made, and that first release date is very important to the authors, and it's like, oh, you got to make it memorable. But yeah, and also again, writing while listening to music. A lot of authors do that. Oh, goodness gracious. Okay. Let's see. This is where I wish I had a music theme like Jeopardy. You did good, girl. You did good. I want to say the lie is custom Funk Pop of yourself.
No.
Good for you. I'm glad you have one.
I do. I am from the land of Funko, so when I go back home to visit, I go up to the Funko headquarters north of Seattle, and I got a nifty cool one with blue hair and everything made of myself. Yes.
Yeah.
The lie is I can only write while listening to music, because I can actually only write with silence.
Okay.
I get too distracted. So I'm like squirrel. So silence is great for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I do have the release date of my first book as a tattoo. It's part of the Eye of Horus, which is big in the book. And it has a quote from the song that helped inspire it. So
wow, so very intricate, all encompassing. That's awesome.
yes.
Yeah, well, I love this. That's so cute. I love it all, between the tattoos and the Funko Pops, and also the whole because I know people that write in silence, and I know other ones that cannot deal with the silence. They have to have the music for inspiration, or just a cadence sometimes too, they've said. So, and now we know a little bit more about you as well. So it's great. Thank you for sharing. So before we go, can you tell us what you're currently working on, if you can share, and then what's coming up next for you?
So just finished writing the end for Perfectly Not yesterday. So it's kind of going through some last minute edits and proofing before it gets formatted and sent out to my review team. Very, very, very excited for that. Audiobook wise, as I mentioned earlier, I am listening to the latest audiobook we just had recorded. And that is for Darkmoor Manor. And that is co-written with Aspen Black. Demons and gargoyles and yummy creatures. Oh my.
I was just about to say that.
Oh yeah. There's horns and tails and all sorts of fun stuff. And I'm about falling out of my chair listening to it.
Nice.
Coming up, I am working on a short story piece for an anthology that comes out very soon. It is called One More Kiss, and it is to benefit the suicide prevention charity. Okay. So it's something that's pretty near and dear to my heart. So I am really excited that I'm going to be able to contribute to that. I'm just taking a break other than that. I am relaxing, celebrating the win yesterday of writing the end. Have more audiobooks recording in August. So
wow.
Woohoo.
We have a lot to looking forward to do then, huh?
Yes.
Yeah, I love it when you guys share that something else is coming up and it gets us all excited, and then we're like, well, wait, if it's coming out on this date, then that means I still have time to go back and reread or re-listen to something just to make sure I'm all caught up again. And so then you go back and it's all fun. It's all fun. It's one of the reasons why I love this community so much. There's so much positivity with everything. And, maybe you're not the only one that likes gargoyles. And now you have an entire team of people that, love gargoyles with you guys, so it's really cool. Well, thank you so much for hanging out with me today and getting to chat and getting to know you better. It's been so much fun. I'm looking forward to it in September when I get to, meet you. And if we're doing the hugging thing, we'll do the hug thing and the lore when we're there. So it'll be so exciting and fun. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me. I've been a big fan of the podcast. So getting to come on is like a little fangirl moment for myself. So I am excited.
Oh, yay. Thank you so much. I love hearing that. I hope everything is to your liking. And I will be including all your social media information for anybody that is, for whatever reason, not following you, for them to follow you now. That's a hint that you all should, if you're not. But that information will be included in this episode's post over at Viviana, Enchantress of Books. And until next time, happy listenings. Thank you again.
Thank you to all of our Audiobook Lovin Podcast Patreon. Special thanks to Nixley Zenner, Carol Liebner, Brittany Robinette Leiter, Dawn Darch, Michelle Bastard. The Audiobook Lovin Podcast has special Patreon access levels. Join today to receive benefits including early access to episodes, shout-outs, special exclusive content, and much more. Support the podcast by becoming a Patreon at www.patreon.com/audiobooklovin. We thank you for your support.
Thank you for joining us on the Audiobook Lovin Podcast, hosted by Viviana, Enchantress of Books. For links and more information discussed in today's episode, previous podcasts, or the Audiobook Lovin Series, please visit our website, vivianaenchantressofbooks.com. If you enjoyed today's episode, please leave a positive review wherever you listen to our podcast. Until next time, happy listening.